The storm had come without warning, tearing through the settlement on Kepler 442b with a fury that reminded Arya Lorne why humans called this world the Edge. Been securing the atmospheric processors when she heard it, a sound that cut through the howling wind like a blade through silk. A desperate, keening cry. Arya's boots splashed through the rapidly forming streams as she ran toward the sound. The river that normally trickled peacefully past the settlement had transformed into a raging torrent, swollen with the planet's violet-tinged rain. And there, tumbling in the violent current, was something that made her heart stop. It looked like a wolf pup, but wrong in ways that were both alien and beautiful. Its fur shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with distress, and it had 6 legs instead of 4, the front 4 paddling frantically, while the rear 2 kicked uselessly against the current. Its eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle, locked onto Arya with an intelligence that seemed far too ancient for something so small. She didn't think. Thinking got people killed on the Edge. Arya dove into the water. The cold hit her like a physical blow, and the current immediately tried to claim her as its own. She was a strong swimmer, had to be growing up on Europa Station, but this was different. The water here was denser, heavier, and it fought her with every stroke. The pup was being pulled toward the falls, where the river dropped 50 meters into a canyon that no one had ever successfully climbed out of. Her fingers brushed fur. She grabbed, and suddenly the pup was in her arms, surprisingly heavy, its luminescent patterns flaring bright blue as it clung to her with all 6 legs. Sharp claws dug through her jacket, but she barely felt it. She kicked hard, angling toward the bank, using the current rather than fighting it. They hit the shallows hard. Arya's knee cracked against a rock, but she kept moving, crawling up the muddy bank with the pup still clutched to her chest. Only when they were well away from the water did she collapse, gasping for air. The pup Veka, she would later learn was its name, shook itself violently, spraying water in every direction. Its bioluminescent patterns had shifted from distressed blue to a warm amber color. It looked at her with those 3 eyes, tilted its head, and made a sound that was part chirp, part howl, part something entirely alien. Then it licked her face with a tongue that had a texture like velvet-covered sandpaper. Arya laughed, exhausted and exhilarated. "You're welcome, little guy." That's when she heard the growling. They emerged from the tree line like ghosts made solid, a dozen creatures that were clearly Vika's kind, but fully grown. Each stood nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder, their 6-legged gait both graceful and predatory. Their bioluminescent patterns pulsed in synchronized waves of deep crimson. Arya's hand went instinctively to her sidearm, but she didn't draw it. She'd lived on the Edge long enough to know that showing aggression to a pack predator was a death sentence. The largest of them stepped forward, its patterns shifting through a spectrum of colors Arya couldn't name. It was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure, all muscle and alien intelligence. Its 3 eyes fixed on her, then on Vika, who had pressed itself against Arya's side, making soft whimpering sounds. The pack leader's patterns flashed bright yellow a color. Arya would later understand meant caution, and it lowered its massive head toward her. Arya held her breath. This was it. She was about to die, and the settlement would never even know what happened to her. But the creature didn't attack. Instead, it gently nuzzled Vika, its patterns softening to a warm green. The pup responded in kind, its own patterns matching its elders. They were communicating, Arya realized. The lights weren't just decoration, they were language. Then the pack leader did something that would change everything humanity thought it knew about the indigenous species of Kepler 442b. It turned to Arya and bowed. Not a threat display, not a hunting crouch, a deliberate, unmistakable gesture of respect. One by one, the entire pack followed suit, their luminescent patterns all shifting to a brilliant gold that lit up the storm-darkened forest like a constellation of fallen stars. Veka chirped happily and bounded forward to rejoin its pack, but before disappearing into their midst, it looked back at Arya one more time. Its patterns flashed in a sequence: blue, gratitude; amber, affection; gold, respect. The pack leader stepped forward again and placed something at Arya's feet, a crystalline structure that pulsed with soft light. Then, with a grace that belied their size, the pack melted back into the forest, taking Vika with them. Arya sat there in the mud and rain, holding the crystal, watching the lights disappear into the trees. She didn't understand what had just happened. Not really. But as she made her way back to the settlement, she realized that humanity had just made first contact with intelligent alien life. And it had started with a simple act of compassion. 3 months later, the pack returned. Not to attack, not to drive humans away, but to bring their young to learn from the strange two-legged creatures who had shown kindness to one of their own. The crystal they'd given Arya turned out to be a gift beyond measure, a biological sample that revolutionized human understanding of bioluminescent communication and opened the door to true interspecies dialogue. But Arya never forgot that moment in the rain, when a drowning pup's desperate cries had led to something greater than anyone could have imagined. She kept one of Veka's shed juvenile teeth on a chain around her neck, a reminder that sometimes the most important moments in history start with the simplest of choices: to save a life, to show mercy, to be human in the best possible way.